Hello, welcome to Ray-ality TV. I'm Raymond Bakari. Today I'm
Hi,
joined
Ray.
by Cameron Moquin, who is one of several Democrats running for Congress in Rhode Island's 2nd Congressional District following Congressman Jim Langevin's retirement. He's a rescue lieutenant for the Providence Fire Department. Mr. Moquin, how are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. It's good to have you on the show. My first question here, you're running for Rhode Island's 2nd Congressional District in 2022, seeking the Democratic nomination in a crowded primary is the best way to put it. Why do you want to be the next congressperson?
Well, I just want to improve people's lives, really. When I go to work, I patch people up and bring them to the hospital constantly. And unfortunately, there's nothing I can do to really change the situation that brought them there. Like, I constantly tell people that, I wish I could do more. I wish I could write a law to change the way things are for you, because honestly, a lot of people are dealing with problems of like social and economic equality that are keeping them in a position where it makes things difficult for them. And then they find themselves in these emergency situations, or what they perceive to be emergency situations. And then that's where I come in and I scoop them up with my rescue truck and bring them to the hospital. And so, I'm doing it because I want to help these people and everyone, but there's so many people suffering needlessly in the state, and it just shouldn't be happening this way in America. That's why I'm running. It's just to help people.
I noticed on Twitter you call yourself a progressive Democrat, and you're followed by a lot of progressives running for office. And specifically, I noticed the Rhode Island Political Co-op. Are you one of the 50 candidates that they're saying that they're going to run this year?
I don't know. I don't believe that I've gotten their official stamp of approval yet. I wouldn't expect any problems receiving that, though. It's still fresh in the campaign. I haven't technically rolled out an official campaign announcement. It was sort of a slow rollout. So I think people are just sort of waiting and seeing what I produce here with my campaign. Things are moving along, though, and it's encouraging.
One of your main policy proposals is environmental stewardship. Can you explain for those watching what that would entail?
So there are thankfully plenty of people who are on the same page with me on the environment. And we're talking about just things like preparation for climate change. We know it's happening regardless of its cause. We have to prepare for it now. So there are a number of things we can do with that. And I know that there's some bills that have already passed to provide funding and, targeted projects for, preparation for that sort of thing. But also we need to mitigate things like just plastics, the use of plastic, single-use plastics, non-recyclable plastic packaging. It drives me up a wall every time I see it, and it keeps coming through the house because there's nothing you can do about it right now. But there are other ways. I know the technology exists. So we just need to push society in Rhode Island in the right direction that way. And in terms of environmental stewardship, yes, I'm on board with all of the current legislation in place and bills on the floor that are, there to protect and to prevent serious disasters, and really just to like maybe do a better job with the environment that we have. So it would be good if we could just get that settled and move on, live a very sustainable life. That's what I want for America and for Rhode Island.
You're also in favor of what recently can be described by most Democrats I interview as reimagining public safety. To my understanding, one of the main ideas of this is taking some form of funding or getting revenue to hire social workers, start having officers go through de-escalation training, the list goes on. Usually this is more of a state issue, but since you're running for Congress, I'm curious, would you try to introduce a bill for this to be done nationally? And how likely would you see that passing the House?
Well, exactly. So this is actually, it falls into part of my like health systems transformation policy, where the mental health aspect of emergency response is often carried out by police officers. And I would venture to say a majority of what police officers are dealing with out on the streets is mental health oriented. So I believe that some legislative pressure from the top needs to be in place nationwide to correct these problems, because it's not just a Rhode Island problem. This is a nationwide problem. But we can create a framework here, a scalable model that could be applied throughout the country. And Rhode Island could be the leader. Yeah.
So, sorry. Speaking of healthcare, you kind of talked about it a little bit. Healthcare equity is another one of your key issues you plan to focus on. It contains two subtopics within the umbrella topic: defeating homelessness and creating a step down from 911. These are multifaceted and complicated issues. Can you explain a little more about these proposals and how you believe they would benefit residents in the district?
Right. Yeah. So the healthcare system, now it is very hairy with a lot of detail, as you say, but the idea is that if you change the way it's delivered in a way that actually helps people better, lowers their costs, improves the quality and speed of care, it's a win-win situation for everybody, right down to the payers, like the insurance companies, who nobody really cares about, but let's be honest, it matters because, you know, if we're fighting against them, you're never going to win. So the idea is to create a system that works better for everybody. And this way we can improve care, lower costs, and we'll be better prepared for maybe a more universal healthcare situation. But until then, like, we need to clean up the mess that currently exists. Otherwise, it'll just be a disaster when we roll out, say, M4, Medicare for all, or something to that effect. There is the mental health component. It's just a national crisis in mental health, and that plays into the homelessness aspect. So homelessness exists for so many reasons, and it's not just mental health. There are so many reasons where people could be on the verge of homelessness or within homelessness, but there's no way to get out of that position once you're there. There's so much red tape existing just to keep people down, and it may not be intentional, but that it is what it is. Like, once a person finds himself in that position, it is virtually impossible for them to get out. So the plan is to alert people to the fact that, you know, these people are your neighbors. They work with you sometimes. You don't even know that they're homeless, but all you need to do is provide them stability. So shelter stability, food security, and it gives them a chance to actually get their footing well enough so that they can support themselves. But until that point, they become high service users. So like EMS service, emergency room, all sorts of ways that, like, the American public, the Rhode Islanders, are paying specifically directly out, like in forms of tax dollars. Like your public safety is responding to them. Your hospital bills are up because you're covering for them. And this could all be changed just by approaching it differently. And it's really just something where we do targeted funding with a well laid out plan. It can change the way the whole thing is played, and it'll be better for everyone. So the idea, we can help bring homelessness out of the picture, and we can bring better healthcare to everyone. And that's what I believe. I know that we can do it.
Shifting the topic to term limits, our last congressman, technically our current congressman, I should say, he served for over 20 years, being first elected before I was even thought of in 2000. Where do you stand on term limits for members of Congress?
So I like the concept. The concept of term limits makes sense, and I can see why people would want it. I'm not particularly against it, and I would consider it, but I do also see the benefit in having some long-term senior congressmen who have been working on policies for decades, where, you know, the moment comes, and I know that this is what happens when it comes to certain policies, that you'll have a bill that you want to introduce to the floor, but it may be 20 years down the line that this becomes such an important piece of legislation because of public consciousness shifting, that you're going to be the one ready to send that thing out. You'll have, like, the thing already written and ready to be endorsed and sponsored. And also there's people who are just like great organizers. Like, you've got Nancy Pelosi, and you've got like Sheldon Whitehouse, who's been just a great guy all around, senior guy. We can trust him. We know what to expect with him. And honestly, if we didn't like the job he was doing, we would have just voted him out. So there is sort of like a term limit built into the fact that, like, you could easily just be voted out of the position. But at the same time, I see why people would want them, because you'd see these lifelong politicians, career politicians, maybe not doing anything, but they're not getting voted out because maybe they haven't done anything egregious enough to, you know, to motivate voters to vote them out or find somebody else to replace them. But I think that there is something to be said for senior senators and congressmen, but I think the people have the final say on that.
So it sounds like you're open to the idea, but not ultimately for it. But
I would agree.
Yeah, and what you described actually is a term length, because senators and congresspeople, they could stay there until the day they are in the grave. Strom Thurmond is an example. He stayed way beyond his welcome. He was in his, I believe, early hundreds when he was a senator. I do have to ask, however, because a follow-up I typically ask, for example, Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, he does what we call self-imposing term limits on the show,
Right.
where he pledged to only do 2 Senate terms. This is his second term, so he's not running for re-election. Would you plan to commit to any self-imposed term limits so you're not there for 20, 30 years?
Right now, I'm committed to running the best campaign I can and doing the best I can to help the people of Rhode Island. So I'm going to leave it at that. I don't have even a place to say that I'm going to have a term to limit. I'm going to do the best I can, but I don't want to commit to a term limit.
We have quite some ground to cover. So these next few, I want to do like in shorter form, like in favor of or opposed, kind of like a lightning round. So this first one is a big one that Democrats are in favor of. Are you for or against statehood for DC and Puerto Rico?
Yes, I am for it. I'm for Puerto Rico. I'm for DC. I do understand why they haven't gotten it, to the extent that it's a strategic move on the Republicans, I believe. But I am for it, and these people deserve to be represented. This is America, okay? We were founded on representation, and they're not represented, and it's about time that they are. Another
piece of legislation that more progressives are in favor of is adding more seats to the Supreme Court. Would you vote in favor of for or against? Would you vote for or against legislation to add more Supreme Court justices?
I would vote for legislation that either increases or decreases, whatever works, because the current situation was set up by dishonest means. So I don't like the way the Republicans ended up blocking the Democrat pick and then suddenly flooded it with their own picks. So honestly, I think it's about time we did something about it. I will vote for growing or shrinking the Supreme Court.
Members of Congress trading stocks has become a controversial topic in recent weeks. For example, Senator John Ossoff of Georgia, he's introducing a bill that would ban members of Congress from trading stocks and also ending any loopholes where they could say, oh, but my spouse or husband or partner or even a Supreme Court justice from trading stocks, basically to ban all loopholes. If, say, for example, that bill doesn't pass by that time, can you assure that you won't trade stocks or use any loopholes?
Oh, yeah, I'm 100% behind that. And John Ossoff, yeah.
Say you're elected, January 2023 comes, one of the first votes you'd pick is, or you'd have to be responsible for is voting for a House Minority Leader or even a Speaker, depending on how the election goes. Is there a specific Democrat in mind you'd vote for Speaker or House Minority Leader?
Yeah, I think Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries of New York?
Yes, yes.
Shifting to the non-political topics, I found out recently you're a Rick alumnus. You were part of WXIN, our radio station here, part of the Anchor, where I'm currently in the office of. You were an arts and entertainment contributor. You also founded the cycling club. I have to ask, because it sounds like you were quite involved on campus. How was your time like as a Rick student?
I actually love Rhode Island College, and I would go back if I had an excuse to. I went back for a second degree. I loved it so much, but yeah, the student body, the staff. I love all my professors. Such a great. I actually just had lunch with a former professor, so yeah. I mean, I love Rhode Island College. I love the culture there. I like that it was so small and like it's like a community that I think that you maybe don't get in some of the other schools. I really liked it.
That's awesome to hear, and it certainly is an underrated school. My final non-political topic and a question for the interview is one that I ask everybody on the show, and that is, in your opinion, what do you think Rhode Island is best known for?
Food. We've got the best food, the best bars, the beaches. So I want 3 things. We've got the best. I mean, look at Atwell's app. I have traveled, okay? I will say this. I have been to many places, and nowhere comes anywhere close to the quality of food that we have in the state of Rhode Island. We are spoiled. So I definitely will stand behind that.
We absolutely are. Do you have any specific places as a go-to for those who may not be from Rhode Island or familiar with our cuisine?
Well, I'm vegan, so I have recently, I mean, within the last 3 or 4 years, I want to say 3 years, I've been vegan, and it's been great. It does sort of limit my my destinations, but I do love like, you know, Plant City Garden Grill. The ice cream shop, Like No Other, is the best. So I can't recommend them enough. Like No Other.
I'll have to swing by one of those places and definitely try it out. I'm curious how vegan, is it vegan ice cream or is it just,
Yeah, it's vegan ice cream, and the soft serve, like, it's amazing. It kicks, it blows out of the water other soft serve.
I'll definitely have to try that out. Thank you for the recommendation. And
problem.
thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine to have you on.
Great, thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching this episode of Ray-ality TV. If you want to see future episodes as soon as they're posted on this channel, please click both the subscribe button and post notification bell icon to the right of it down below. I'm Raymond Bakari, and I'll see you on the next episode.